I used to channel my art, and I didn't know that I was doing it until after I stopped doing it. And I want to talk about uh, learning how to channel art as a teenager. My dad set me up with an art tutor after school because I was kind of a troubled youth, and he's like, well, maybe we can focus his energy and attention into drawing because I was pretty good at it. And it kind of runs in the family on my mom's side. So he set me up with this art tutor, and she was a satanic witch from a coven and worshipped Lucifer, and she would try to get me to listen to Graham Parsons' project, and he has an album called Lucifer. And if you've ever seen a picture of Graham Parsons, he looks like the devil. He looks like the devil who's, doing well. He looks evil. Anyway, that's 1970s prog rock, and he was the guy that in the early 80s came up with a sound-alike song called Eye in the Sky, and it's about Eye of Sauron. It's like the all-seeing eye of Satan and Illuminati and all that stuff. So I never liked the music. I thought it was terrible. Tried to get me to listen to Pink Floyd. Anyway, having her as an art teacher, she did teach me fundamentals of art, which is just hard work and discipline. And here's how to draw, life drawing, find pictures and photo reference, and then just, draw from life, actually learn how to see. And not just like you're, spiritualized, just like, well, if you want to learn how to do a thing, sit down and do the work and study. And once you learn the rules, then you can break them. And I don't know if you know this, but throughout art history, there are different schools of teaching people how to draw. And they were heavily guarded secrets. Here's the, bomb school of way of learning how to draw. Here's the... Is there a Gaslight School? What was it called? There's different schools, and they guarded the way that they would teach their students to draw. If you go to CalArts, you learn how to draw in the CalArts style, and it's because of who the instructors are there. A lot of people do learn skills, but they also learn to use whoever those CalArts instructors are, their palettes, you know what I mean? You wind up being like a second-rate version of somebody else. But you will learn fundamentals of drawing, learn how to, how to do perspective, stuff like that. And I was under her tutelage for a while before she started bringing me into the New Age stuff. And a lot of freaky things started happening when she came into my life, like shadow people, sleep paralysis. And then I would tell her about this stuff, and she would say, oh yeah, maybe you want to stay away from those guys. And she would tell me all these things because she's trying to have sex with me, and she would tell me that I was special and that I was an old soul and all this New Age stuff. But I did, learn how to draw pretty good. I became a professional. And then the idea of channeling artwork, where she probably said something to the equivalent of, just sit down and just make up stuff, and whatever comes into your mind, just draw that and just see where it goes. Like, 1960s stuff, like have a stream of consciousness and draw. So I had ideas for comic books that were basically channeled real things from occultism. So I guess I could say, as a follower of Jesus, this is part of my testimony. And I will now take a note to reference. Go listen to Joe Schimmel, Good Fight Ministries, Joe Schimmel. He has his testimony, and he talks about how he channeled music. This is my story about how I channeled paintings and drawings and ideas for comic books and stories and stuff like that. So, I would come up with ideas that were in occult books. Like I had this idea of somebody who would go to sleep, and then when they were sleeping, they would go into the world outside of their body, like out-of-body experience, even though I was a teenager and I had no idea of anything about that. And this was a long time ago, so people didn't know about everything like they do now online. So I had this idea that, the main character would go to sleep, and he would travel outside of his body, and he'd go into the world, and it was empty of all people, and then they would do these like missions and stuff. So it was like you'd go to sleep and he would go to work, and he'd do all this like cool fantasy adventures and stuff in an empty world. And this is before Twin Peaks and all that stuff, and like long way before all that stuff. Just, you know what I mean? Because I'm, the set and everything. So, then I saw pictures in a book of like old theosophists and spiritists and the people that would channel spirits, because she was into all this witchcraft stuff. And my ideas for like comic books, even though I wasn't into superhero comics, I was into heavy metal or metal hurling. So I was into like Mobius, and Mobius is Jean Girard's the same guy. He's like a national treasure in France. And he was a New Ager, so he would channel his ideas. I mean, in fact, he would do wife swaps with Alejandro Jodorowsky. Like, they all lived in the same house, them and their wives and their families, and they would like, they were swingers. So that was one of my, it's not the swinger part, but Mobius was one of my inspirations, and I look at all that stuff, and the guy could draw anything. And he channeled it. So I was like, well, he's doing all this stream of consciousness stuff. My art instructor said just sit down and doodle things. That's channeling. You're not thinking about what you're going to draw, and you just kind of let it come to you. That's channeling. Automatic writing is channeling, where you sit down and you don't know what you're going to write, but you want to contact the spirit realm, so you just sit down and you write whatever comes to you. Like somebody asks, it's like a Ouija board. The same thing as a witch board, as fortune telling. It's channeling. So somebody asks a question, and then without looking at the page, you just write down whatever comes to mind, and then you look back and you read it, and you're like, whoa, that's freaky, man. I didn't know that. And then you believe in it, and you like it's magical thinking, which is against God. We're not supposed to do magic, witchcraft, sorcery, any of those things. No predicting of omens, no talking to the dead, all that stuff. You're not supposed to do. It's in Deuteronomy 18:10-12. Stuff that God said not to do. And that stuff that he said not to do definitely transfers from Old Testament, which is the Old Covenant, to New Testament, which is the New Covenant. So I was channeling all kinds of theosophist ideas, so it got me interested in that stuff, which is how you get led astray through channeling. Hey, we want you to know about witchcraft and sorcery and the forbidden arts. And I'm learning this stuff from an actual witch from a coven, bad news, and she was trying to get with me, and I'm an underage teenager, and weird stuff would happen because of this woman in my life, where I opened up my bedroom window, and then there was like animal guts and blood on the windowsill and outside, and then I would tell her about all this stuff because I didn't know that it was about her, and she was like, oh yeah, that's somebody's trying to give you protection from evil. And that probably happened after I started talking about like the sleep paralysis stuff and the shadow people and seeing the shadow people, and which that's all occult. You're not supposed to do that shit. So I had a lot of ideas over the years that were channeling, and I remember like whenever I first heard this, that somebody asked Stephen King where he got all of his ideas, and the question really pissed him off. And he said, that's the question I hate the most. And a lot of artists say this. They say the question that they hate, whether they're musicians or painters or writers or whatever kind of an artist that somebody is, a question that a lot of artists don't like is, where do you get your ideas from? Oh, you guys must have been really high when you did this. And people who do get high will say, yeah, we were really high, and then I don't know where it came from, but it kind of came to me. And that's a lot of people's modus operandi, like how they operate, is they get drunk, they get high, and then they come up with ideas. You're blurring the boundaries between corporeal and incorporeal when you do this. So you're opening yourself as a channel, a conduit for what? To let demons come in and whisper in your ears, or to take over, and you get your ideas from there. I've had there's this saying that says, where'd you get that idea from? And they say, wow, that whole thing sounds like it's full blown from the head of Zeus. Zeus isn't God. Zeus is like, some kind of surrogate for the devil or Cernunnos or whatever, right? So Zeus is one of the pagan gods of ancient Greece, but not God. So full-blown from the head of Zeus. A lot of my ideas would come full-blown from the head of Zeus. And a lot of artists say they don't know where their ideas come from, and they hate that question because they channel. So a lot of artists, you say, that's satanic. Well, probably a lot of those people aren't satanic. Maybe they've read occult literature and they do get their ideas from that and they put it out into the world. And of course, the powers that be, prince of the power of the air, rich people have money, favor those kinds of ideas because that's their religion. How do you propagandize what you believe and put it out into the world? Movies and TV shows and books, and make that stuff popular. So there's a lot of bad stuff in Stephen King, a lot of occult stuff and horror and gore and all that stuff, and he doesn't know where his ideas come from. So does that mean that he's evil? No, it just means that a lot of people channel stuff. Now the Theosophists and the Spiritists and Annie Besant and Aleister Crowley and all those types, there's a lot of people that know that they're channeling, and they think that some people know that they're communicating with evil. Like even John Dee was fooled. You know who, you ever hear about John Dee? John Dee the guy from the Gorillaz who writes the song from the Gorillaz, I forget if it's Jamie Hewlett or the guy from Blur, but the guy who, one of the creators of the band the Gorillaz, he said that he channels the Gorillaz songs. He said that he channels, like openly said it, just one example of many, where he would summon the spirit of John Dee, which isn't possible because John Dee's been long dead, and when you die you're with God. But anyway, the guy from the Gorillaz said that he would channel the spirit of John Dee, and that's how he'd come up with the Gorillaz songs. And if you've ever seen a Gorillaz video, some of them are outright occult initiation rituals where the characters are animated into going through some kind of Illuminati, occult, Manly P. Hall type of initiation with all the symbolism, and it's animated, and then you watch that and you're a participant in some kind of occult ritual with cool tunes. That's the Gorillaz with a Z. So, anyway, John Dee would contact the demon, and then at some point the demon said, you and your buddy have to swap wives. And when John Dee did that, it was when things started to turn for him, if I remember properly. And he realized that he had been duped, and he said, you know what? Maybe I wasn't talking to some kind of spirit. I was probably talking to a demon, and it messed my life up. And then John Dee's life was pretty rough after that, if it wasn't rough the whole time. But John Dee, if I'm not mistaken, was advisor to the Queen. And so that's witchcraft, sorcery, fortune telling. That's what John Dee did. And I think the description of the demon he talked to looked like Yoda from the movies or whatever. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, we're still talking about channeling. So a lot of my ideas for things turned out were real, actual occult practices or things that were a part of occultism. So one of my ideas was astral travel, only I'd never heard the words before, and this was a long time ago. So as I got older, these New Age became popular with Doreen Virtue and all that stuff, and fortune telling, and people were like getting inheritances. So my grandma died, now I'm going to open an angel store, and they would also be fortune tellers, and they would say, no, we don't talk to demons, we talk to angels. Yes, I believe you. Fallen angels, the kind that God doesn't want us talking to. So I became a New Ager, not knowing that. Out of high school, and then me and the girlfriends go to the New Age shop and we're buying crystals, and crystals are just like a thing to hold demons in. Like the Eye of Sauron in Lord of the Rings, there was like 12 Palantirs, and the wizards in Lord of the Rings would look into their crystal balls, and that was a window for demons, and the wizards would see things in other places and stuff, like through the eyes of the demons or whatever. But how it works in our world is that, crystals and rocks and crystal balls is also the eyes for a demon, and the demons talk to each other, and we can't see them. They're incorporeal, and they know things, and they talk to each other, and then we channel that information. A fortune teller will hear the whispers of demons and then tell people stuff that they couldn't know about the person that's paying for the fortune telling service. So I would do that New Age stuff, and then there was always New Age shops where you would just go buy all the occult materials, and they had like witches. I don't know how much. There's probably that stuff is coming back, or it's just online. But I remember like going into places and they had like, $250, and like, what's that? And they're like, it's the heart of a lion. And they're like, why would anybody want that? And it's like, oh, that's for witchcraft. And I'm like, this is a long time ago, because I remember the price was $250 for the heart of a lion. I'm like, it's probably not really a lion's heart. It's probably like a cow heart or something. How would you know? But anyway, it was like stores where you could buy things for magic spells, because my art teacher was a witch and she was bringing me into all these things. Even though I'm glad I never put my thing in this woman, but I found a girlfriend, and then I got, and and was spared being abused by an adult, and was fooling around with somebody my own age. And but the New Age stuff never went away, and a lot of my ideas for art and creativity came from automatic drawing, stream of consciousness drawing. And I would paint whole paintings like this, and I would just get the paints and not even have a drawing in pencil sometimes on the canvas, or whatever I was painting on masonite, cardboard, it could be anything. And I would just start making a painting, and it was done. They were pretty good. I had already, foundationally learned draftsmanship skills. I went to high school for it for a sec. I was in a commercial arts program for half the day, and then I came home from school and drew pictures. I also had the tutoring. I also had like New Age occult ritual jaunts. My art teacher would do fortune telling readings for me, and crystals and stones, and give me all these rocks and stuff. And all this stuff is just like being given to rocks and stones. It's just like it's like, here's the eye of a demon to see into your life, to influence it. So I got really good, but all my ideas were very occult ideas, so I was interested in that stuff. So I started picking up these occult books, and God in His grace and His mercy kept me ignorant for a long time, and constantly was like shielding me and pulling me out of perilous situations that I got myself into with occultism, not even really knowing that's what I was doing, and always finding boundaries. Several times in my life, I was just on the verge of success with the artistic pursuit, and then it would always get to this point where I would be like, something's not right about this, and then I would just stop doing the thing. Some of those could have been successes that I kind of cut off. Probably would have led me down a dark path because of the people that I would have gotten myself involved with. Like, probably getting involved with Cartoon Network, Adult Swim is not a good thing. Did you ever see the Turner Building in Georgia and the Adult Swim grounds, which I think is also in Georgia, right? Is it Georgia or North Carolina? Anyway, they have Big Gold Owl. There's a big gold owl on top of the Turner Building. I don't have good photos of this, but I'll try and include one in here. And also it's on the grounds, like if you're walking the grounds, they have like a little plaza, whatever you call it. You can walk around, smoke cigarettes or vapes or whatever. And there's a big gold owl, and it's Ted Turner Broadcasting. So, do what you will with that. So I kept having like the VP of two different VP of developments phone numbers, and then I had stuff going on. But I would like, do I just have a fear of success? I don't think so. I just think it could be this is how the Holy Spirit works in our lives, where we just feel something in our spirit, which may be God's spirit, or His and ours together, and me unknowingly, never having cracked the Bible, where I was on the cusp of some kind of success that probably would have led to bad times, and I always cut myself off. Like I could have had a comic book published, like a Mobius style comic book, and then the guy who was going to publish it like destroyed his life on like meth or something, and all his everything that he was building, and he was really going places that went to shit. I could have went places, but like people died because of their drug stuff, and I would have been right into that, and I really wouldn't have known any better. And there was a lot of people that had things going, and movie deals, which a lot of times that stuff never goes anywhere anyway. And then they messed it all up on drugs, and they were into like dark stuff and new age stuff. And so over and over again, I was kind of like safely ushered away from that stuff. Even though I was like all wrapped up in it, even to the point of like being in bad places through plane travel, and then being at the airport in other countries where I could have been bad, and instead I was just like kind of, by the grace of God, grace of God, help whether you deserve it or not, just like safely carried away over and over and over again, because God knew that I did not know what I was getting into, and He sent angels probably to guide and guard me if He didn't do it Himself. But then I started working at a holistic healing center, and I started going to church, but it was a recognized church, like in America, so they get benefits from government and all that tax breaks and stuff. So whatever they had to do to get that accreditation, I don't know. But it was also a New Age church, so we would just do New Age stuff inside of an old church. And the church was so bad in doing New Age stuff that the parking lot caved into the earth like a sinkhole, so that there was no place to park to go to this church, because God like pushed the earth in, or demons pushed it in or whatever, and you couldn't park there. So they had to fill the church parking lot in, and they were doing New Age stuff. They used to do exorcisms and stuff there too. So some people knew who God was and knew that it was Jesus, but they were all mixed up in this New Age stuff. And I started going to church there, and I became the janitor there, and I had weird experiences where I'd smell like strange aromas, that things smelled really great, like somebody was burning something but it smelled good. And sometimes it would just smell like burning, like somebody burning something here, and it was just me, myself, alone in the church. And weird stuff would happen in there, and I'll just leave it at that. And smelling like things that smelled good. Like I remember being in there cleaning it one time with my friend, and he was a fortune teller, and he would do fortune tellings and stuff like that. People would call him on the phone, and he'd do readings over the phone for them, because he was like, 60s, child of the 60s and everything, and then that transitioned into, he never stopped doing that, and he would like officiate gay weddings and all this stuff. And he even admitted that the fortune telling he did was like basically therapy sessions. So sometimes people would call him all the time, and he wouldn't charge them for it all the time, because basically these people were lonely shut-ins, and he was just doing therapy for the phone. But he would read the cards, and he used playing cards, because he knew how to read playing cards, because I think that's part of where tarot came from, because a lot of things you can use for witchcraft and sorcery. Like you can just use a piece of paper and do automatic writing and do like Ouija board, basically. You don't need to buy one. There's all kinds of, now I have an app. You can do a Ouija board app and get into trouble with God and mess your life up. So I worked at this holistic healing center. I was going to a New Age church. And at the and I started doing paintings. So my buddy wanted to have a yard sale, and there was a big holistic, it was New Age Expo. And he wanted to have a booth at the New Age Expo, because our church held these New Age Expos every year, and they're pretty big ones, and it made the church a lot of money, like it helped fund them. And so he said, I want to have a booth at the New Age Expo, because I want to do a yard sale and sell a bunch of my stuff. So I'll just open a booth, because he never married, never had kids. And so he just bought a lot of New Age stuff, and he wanted to get rid of it. So he's like, come stay with me for the weekend at my booth, and we'll just hang out at the New Age Expo, and you can walk around, and just so I don't have to be there alone, just come hang out at my booth with me. And I said, yes. And he said, why don't you he said, do you have any stuff you want to sell? And I'm like, no, I don't have like decades of New Age stuff like you have. Because he had like dragons and unicorns and all kinds of crystal stuff, and like 1 million tarot card decks and all this other things. He just wanted to get rid of it all, and that's the perfect place to do it. Like, It just looked like he had a booth. It didn't look like a yard sale. It just looked like he was a vendor. So he said, well, why don't you do paintings? And I said, what does it have to do with New Age? And he said, just call it intuitive paintings. And he gave me his dry erase board. And he said, you're an artist. Draw yourself a nice sign and figure out what it is that's cost effective for you to charge to do paintings. And then I said, well, what does intuitive paintings mean? You know, because we're New Agers, so we know about channeling and all that stuff by this time. And he said, just paint whatever you want and say that it's intuitive, like, I see you, and then whatever you come up with that you can paint, charge them for it. So the price I had settled on was $50 a painting, because the canvases were cheap and you could just buy them like stacked together. And I would do 18 by 24 painting using student acrylic paints because they were cheap. And I knew how to work them. I'm pretty good at painting without even drawing. That's the thing that I could do. Like, I'd say my painting and use of color is probably better than my actual technical drawing skills, even though they are professional level. I used to do storyboards, and you got to be able to draw to do them. So, and everything else I've done, and illustrations. I wanted to be an illustrator, was my aspiration. But I just want to talk about channeling so we can keep going and get to the channeling. So, the whole weekend, which is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I was with him at his booth and we were hanging out, and I would do intuitive paintings, and I made $500 that weekend. So $50 a painting. Over the weekend I made $500, and I was like, that's pretty good. And then I just started painting things, whatever I just wanted to paint. I was channeling these paintings for people, and I didn't know it. I did a painting of Jesus with his face in, and I wasn't doing Christian themed paintings. It was just this one woman. I'm giving one example of the channeling. I'll give others. One lady loved mermaids, so I did a self-portrait. She said, do a portrait of me. And so I did a portrait of her as a mermaid. She's like, how'd you know I love mermaids? And I had like all these little details in the painting that were relative to her life, but not like a fortune telling, just like shit that I shouldn't know about her. So I did this all weekend with people, and like, wow. And then some people just wanted portraits. Like, there was a guy with his kids, and he just wanted a portrait of him with his kids, and this is in the olden days. So he gave me the picture from his wallet, and they walked around a New Age Expo, and I just did like portrait of him and his family, and you know, him and his 2 kids, no wife. So then the one woman, I did a painting of Jesus, but he looked like he was not well, and he was in outer space. It was just Jesus's disembodied head, and it looked like a sickly Jesus. And it was the woman that wanted it was in the booth next to us, and she was like a Christian New Ager. But I didn't think about that when I painted a picture of Jesus. And then she showed me her brother. She had a picture of her brother in a hospital bed right before he died, and I wasn't painting Jesus. I was painting her brother that had died in the hospital. He was like a biker guy, and he was in the hospital and he was sick. It was one of the last pictures she had of him before he died, and she showed it to me, and that's channeling. So at the same time I was working at a New Age center, and I told about the stories of people that I had channeled stuff for, even though I wasn't calling it that. I just said, yeah, I did paintings for people, and I called it intuitive paintings. And then I told them, the people that wanted the paintings, I would tell them all kinds of stuff about them that would be in the painting. And so then my boss at the Holistic Healing Center, which is also a New Age place, which did fortune tellings and tarot card readings and all kinds of Louise Hay nonsense programs and stuff like that, and overcharged health food supplements and stuff like that. Like, they would do this thing called smoothies, where they would juice stuff and they'd take all the juice out of it, and they would dry the leftover pulp and put it on in the Excalibur dehydrator. If you're a New Age person or former New Age, you know about the Excalibur dehydrators. So it's just a big heating coil thing, and it dries out whatever you put on it. You can make beef jerkies on it probably. But anyway, they would juice stuff, and they would take all the leftover pulp, which is the garbage, and they would have me, this is part of my job, dry it out and put it on the Teflex sheets on the Excalibur dehydrator. And then they'd put it in the Vitamix blender when it was dehydrated, and they'd put it in mason jars and charge $40 for a mason jar full of leftover pulp after they had taken the juice out of it, and then they'd sell that to people to rehydrate and then put in this. It was a total ripoff, but that's New Age and all this Louise Hay bullshit that they did there, and like programs and meditations and just stuff to open you to demons. And so when she heard that I was at the New Age Expo for the weekend, which she got kicked out of, at the New Age Expo, they didn't like her because they knew that she was a charlatan, even though it's like the New Age Expo is full of charlatans or unwitting people that channel stuff from demons and they don't know any better. And they only get by, if only by the grace of God that they go on. Most people are a mixed bag. So now that the Demon Expo was over, I told my boss of what I had done over the weekend and how much money I made, and I was like, I could do that all the time. She wanted to set it up that I would, for her Holistic Healing Center, that I would do these intuitive paintings for people and channel stuff. So first, I did intuitive paintings for the people that work there, and it revealed all kinds of stuff about them, because at this point I'm just like channeling. Like, I've become a conduit for channeling stuff about the people that I was working with, and that I didn't know about them. And then they would interpret the paintings, like what it meant to them, and they were impressed. So she's like, that's it, like, you're going to charge so much for the paintings, and they'll get the lion's share, and then I'll get the peanuts left over, and I can do these intuitive paintings. And then I did them for a couple of the customers there, and then that's where my, God, the Spirit of God, or my spirit said, I don't want to do this. And I just told her no, like, I don't want to do this all the time. But I did get some pretty interesting tells. Like, one of the weirder ones was, I did a painting of a guy dressed like a cowboy in the desert, and he was pulling a snake out of his mouth. And then when I gave him the painting, he recounted to me how he went to India on a spiritual quest, and he saw one man beating another guy on his back, and people were going to like intervene and stop the old man from beating up the young guy, until the young guy had a snake coming out of his mouth, and they were trying to pat him on the back because somehow a snake got down this guy's throat, and the old guy was beating him on the back to try and get it out, and finally they pulled the snake out of the guy's mouth. And also this guy was, because of his generation, he grew up with like Hopalong Cassidy and Roy Rogers and John Wayne and all the cowboy stuff. So he always wished that he was born in another time. So I did this painting of him dressed like a cowboy pulling a snake out of his mouth, and whatever the other symbols were in a dream, of all these little details that, not in a dream, in the painting that I did, that were meaningful to his life and completely useless to help guide your life any further. But wow, I did a fortune telling about stuff about a guy that I didn't know any of that shit about, and I did that for a bunch of people. Another one was, I part of the painting had a robin sitting in what's the red bird? A cardinal. Had a cardinal sitting in a tree, and when the girl saw that, she freaked out, because when her dad died, she wanted a sign from God about her dad, and at that very moment, a cardinal flew into their glass door and dropped dead. So somehow that meant something to her. And I drew like weird things, like I put a car in a painting, and she talked about how there was a car crash that transformed this woman's life and all this stuff. So I was channeling all this stuff, and I just want to make note that I channeled all these things, didn't really know that I was doing it. Again, the grace of God, my ignorance, not knowing what I was doing, having a vague idea of what I was doing. I knew that I wasn't gonna start doing this regularly. So I could have had, like extra money and brought money to the place where I was working by doing these intuitive paintings. And I said no, which was the right decision. But I was like telling all kinds of useless information to people, which I think drug trips are like that. People say they took a drug and it changed their lives, but it's really not useful. Like they'll say, I had DMT and all this stuff, and it really doesn't help anybody's life. It's just like stuff you shouldn't know about, and now you know about it, and it's so real and so cool. And then you have to go back to your normal waking life, and you go through your petty grievances and all your things just like it was before. But maybe you have the memory of this spiritual experience where you blurred the boundaries between corporeal and incorporeal. Cool, man. The purple DMT message gave a message from me to my buddy. I did DMT and saw the purple DMT lady, and then I came out and delivered a message to my friend, and he went into the DMT realm, and then he had a message for the next guy, and we all did DMT, and it was crazy because it was all stuff that we don't know about each other, but the DMT woman did, and she gave us messages. Yeah, you're going into realms. In the Bible there are realms, all right, which means that they're real. And when you take psychedelic drugs, you're blurring the boundaries between corporeal and incorporeal, that which is material, that's corporeal, and incorporeal, that which does not have material embodiment, which goes into like spiritual, like demonic possession, where the demon doesn't have material embodiment, but it wants to take over the person so it can use their body to get into trouble and wreck your life. That's demonic possession. And they're, you're material and they're immaterial. They use your corporeality because they are incorporeal. And you're getting yourself into trouble when whether you know it or not, you're listening to the whispers of demons. More about channeling is I spent 3 weeks with a cult, and they channeled everything. They would start businesses and be successful with them. They would channel technologies. Like they came up with a seed press for pressing canola oil very effectively. Which, do you know that canola oil is from the RAPE seed, and it's genetically modified, and you're not supposed to eat it, and it's not good for you? So yeah, they channeled an invention of a new, highly effective canola oil press, which is a GMO crop. I said that right. So I found out that this cult was channeling all kinds of crazy stuff through automatic writing and sometimes through drawings the way that I had did. And the whole, the cult had started out with a mother figure and a father figure, and then they decimated this knowledge, or disseminated, however you pronounce it, this to all the young people that came from broken homes or old unwanted people, and that's who the cult was. Manipulable people looking for something. You need a mom, you need a dad, here's both. And they were kind of a doomsday cult. And again, that was a thing I wasn't joining. I kind of had a crush on one of the girls, and I wanted to get her out of the cult, but that didn't matter because she was one of their number one top. She's also very pretty, one of their top people. So that didn't work out. And but they channeled. They were channelers, and they had volumes of the stuff that they had channeled, and they would try to get people. It's a cult. They're trying to get people into the cult. I remember the leader of the cult telling me that he liked the stuff that Scientology did because it was effective in programming people, which is revealing right there. Also, the leader of the cult had been locked up in a loony bin for an extended period of time, and it was even on the news, they were trying to free the guy, free this guy and get him out of the loony bin. And then when they did get him out, they started a cult, and it was Echo Cult, and that's how I got to know them, because I was not interested in Echo cults, but I was interested in Echo villages. Before anyone was talking about self-sufficient family homesteading, I was a little bit ahead of the curve on that in the early 2000s, before double digits, and that's how I became acquainted with this particular cult. And they also knew about attracting beautiful women from broken homes to try and get men into the cult. And I suspect that's what was done with me, but I was more interested in the Echo Village stuff, and then look at her, ain't she sweet? And anyway. So yeah, they channeled stuff, but they had real world tangible results. And they thought they were channeling spirits, but they thought that they were good spirits. And that's not yes, they're good spirits, like in Isaiah 11:2, God, I pray that your spirit rest upon me. I pray for a spirit of wisdom, a spirit of understanding, a spirit of knowledge, a spirit of your might and your counsel, and I pray that I would delight in fear of you. So there are good spirits that you would want with you. I would say his Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God. But channeling spirits is not good. If you want help from God, he said, ask me for help, and then be patient and wait for a lot of things. But channeling is another thing. You're not asking God for help, you're channeling it. And a lot of people who are creative types do it without knowing it. A lot of ideas for things. The artist says, I hate that idea. I hate when people ask me that question, where do you get your ideas from? Because they don't know. And they don't know that they're channeling. So a lot of stuff that you see in popular culture music is right now openly and overtly satanic, because they read the literature, they tell you what their source, they source where they get their... I'm the guy that created Hellboy, and I'm into reading H.P. Lovecraft and all this occult stuff, and he mixes it up in a soup, and then Guillermo del Weirdo directs 2 Hellboy movies, and they know what they're doing. Guillermo del Toro, who said when he was a child he was visited continually throughout his childhood by Pan, and that was part of his inspiration for the movie Pan's Labyrinth, where, spoiler alert, the kid dies at the end. So some people know what they're doing, some people don't know what they're doing. When Robert Downey Jr. Became Iron Man and everybody loved it, he credited and thanked Aleister Crowley, because he said, and he did this mistakenly because Aleister Crowley's dead and he's in the Lord's hand, and ghosts are demons and fallen angels and unclean spirits and not dead people. But he said that he channeled Aleister Crowley to the point where he felt that he was like brothers with Aleister Crowley, and he said that was the thing that cinched him the role of Iron Man in the Marvel movies. Aleister Crowley did a thing called staring into the eye of Horus, if you don't know who he is. And staring into the eye of Horus is, he would spread somebody's cheeks apart and look into the brown eye and divine the mysteries of the universe and find out secrets of magic and stuff. That's Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, who wanted to be called 666 the Beast, and wrote books speaking about the unspeakable things he did in his 300 plus child sacrifices that he talked about. And he would eat cakes of light, which is spirit cooking, and that's eating scats and bodily fluids, all the kinds you wouldn't want to eat, unless you're a fetishist, and all that stuff. Aleister Crowley. So the inspiration for Iron Man's Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., was Aleister Crowley. And Aleister Crowley was a notorious, disgusting, degenerate, and it didn't end well for him. He's probably having a hot oil bath. And that's channeling. Ezra Miller, who played the Flash, remember how the Flash movie was going to come out and he pretty much destroyed his life and he was starting a cult and running around and stuff. When he got the role of the Flash, or before he got it, I'm not sure which one, he said that he did a Grant Morrison style ritual. Grant Morrison is a comic book guy who's another guy who says, I'm Grant Morrison, I write comic books and I love Aleister Crowley and I think the kids should learn about Aleister Crowley and do magic. And that's his whole shtick. Comic book guy telling kids that read comic books to go do that. Aleister Crowley's a cool guy, like Alan Moore and all these other assholes. So, and Neil Gaiman, who's also, Neil Gaiman, his career is ruined, right? Because he was doing disgusting things. He'd poop off my tip of my thing. That's Neil Gaiman. And that's how he talks to the babysitter. So there you go. So, where am I going with this? It's pretty gross. So anyway, Ezra Miller, he did rituals trying to conjure up the Greek god, like Hermes. Who is the Greek gods that the Flash is based on? Mercury, Hermes. I forget who the Flash, the comic book character, the Flash from the movies, is based on. Messenger of the gods. So Ezra Miller was doing rituals to the spirit of the Flash, which is an ancient Greek god, or like several different gods or whatever, and he was channeling that to become the essence of the Flash, going method or whatever. And then I guess him going method is like he was running around with underage kids and talking about how he's not Ezra anymore, he's they, them. And that sounds like Legion from the Bible. Jesus says, how many demons are in you? And then the demon says, Jesus says, who's in there? What's your name, demon? And then demon says, our name is Legion, for we are many, which means the guy was like full of a whole bunch of different demons. And then Ezra Miller is referring to himself as they, them when he's taken on the role of the Flash. And then if you've ever seen the movie The Flash with Michael Keaton and Ezra Miller, you get two annoying Ezra Millers and one old tired Michael Keaton, and it's terrible. And it ruined the guy's career, right? He was a big up-and-comer. Oh, everybody loves Ezra Miller. And then he's running around doing all this crazy stuff, and he's choking a chick out for asking him about his movies or whatever. He's like choking her to the ground. He loses his mind, the poor kid. They ruined him. You can pray for people like this. Pray for Robert Downey Jr. He's playing Iron Man. He saved the Marvel Universe. Remember that? He laid down his life to save the Marvel Universe. And now he's playing Doctor Doom. Now he's coming back as Satan to destroy the Marvel Universe and kill all your favorite Avengers, because that's the whole point of the ritual, right? You like your superheroes, you want to worship the old gods. Now we're going to kill those guys. We're going to bring in new gods, which reminds me of Neil Gaiman had a TV show called The New Gods, which is based on a book of his, and he's a pervert. So anyway, it's all channeling. A lot of people channel their ideas and they don't know that they do it. And it doesn't mean that they're Satanists, but there are a lot of people who overtly will tell you that they are. Like Travis Scott knows that he worships the devil. He's a musician. Led Zeppelin knows that they worship the devil because Jimmy Page bought Aleister Crowley's house and then sold it to David Bowie, and then I think it burned it down. And it was a horrible house that had paintings of Aleister Crowley cavorting with children, to the point where they're like, we have to cover these walls because they're so obscene. They're like illegal, the things that Aleister Crowley was depicting with children painted on the walls of his house where he did all this evil stuff, and it was a haunted place. And go look at what happened, tragedy that happened to Jimmy Page's kids, and how many, whatever. It's terrible. And that's channeling. And now I'll bring you to the conclusion of this video. I started to see that I couldn't do I've had several periods of this in my life where I started turning away. Like I did stuff in animation. I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a part of any of the cartoons I'm helping make. I had something going with Cartoon Network. I don't know if I want to be responsible for a bunch of plastic crap, or what they'll do with my idea when they try and mold it into, shape it into whatever Cartoon Network wants. And at the time I was involved with Cartoon Network, they had very specific things that they were focused on. They were focused on boys exclusively. The whole channel of Cartoon Network was not aimed at little girls. It was aimed at boys between like 9 and 13 or something like that. It was very specific. And they had all these little details about it. I should get those notes. I know I still have them. I think I brought them out before. And it was, here's the things that we're looking for when we, we like your idea for your series. Put these things into it because these are things that are important to Cartoon Network. And I'm sure this same list is given to other creatives that were, Cartoon Network was interested in. I'm not the only one that had this list of things that they are that they want in shows. And it also would include stuff about advertisers and all that kind of thing. So I kept saying no to things that I could have done intuitive paintings, and I got paid to do paintings. And still, even after my cut of it, still would have been pretty decent. And I could have just done that, and it would have been easy for me because it was channeling. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So this, and then ideas I had, the more I learned about that, what I was doing as occultism. Like I had a $28,000 budget. We're going to make an independent film. And this is years ago when actually things were shot on film. And we're going to try and make a movie for that budget. Maybe it would have been like $30,000 at the end of it, or maybe even more. But at one point I had me and my buddy had like thousands of dollars to make this movie. and it never got made, and I'm the one that stopped it. It probably would have been terrible, okay? But I kept stopping things from happening. And if I told you what that movie was about, it was again about astral travel, and it was a lot of occult inspired without me knowing it, because I was channeling this stuff. Like, I would just sit down and think of stuff and do drawings of creatures and things, and we had an effects budget, we had an effects guy, and then sadly the guy that was going to do our special effects, he wanted to open a special effects place down in New Orleans, and then they had a terrible, was it Hurricane Katrina came and just ruined New Orleans. And I was like, oh man, he was just getting ready to set up shop down there. I wonder what happened. Is all his work underwater now and everything? Anyway, and it was about, the whole movie was about communicating to demons in the dream realm. But I had it more like sci-fi. It was like, I didn't know about demons and stuff. I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about, like, there's these helpers from another dimension, and it's just talking to demons and demons from other dimensions, and that's what the movie was about. I wanted to do like my version of an Eraserhead thing, and there isn't anything like Eraserhead. Maybe the new cabinet of Dr. Caligari, maybe Richard Elfman's Forbidden Zone or something. I don't know. Because I wanted to put my, I had this creepy idea for a creepy movie about demons and astral travel in the dream realm and stuff like that. And all my ideas were like that. And, I guess I could say that I was kind of going places, but I kept shutting it down. And then I got to the point where I was like, I could have been an iconographer. They were going to send me, this is not that long ago, my church, they wanted to send me to the Ukraine to study iconography. Like, they were going to pay for a trip to, to get me started, because I didn't know what to do with art. I just put all my paints away, and I wasn't doing this stuff anymore. And I was like, well, what is something that would be acceptable to God to paint? So it was put into my head by a pastor who was like kind of like a mentor into the Orthodox Church for me. And he kind of put it in my head, well, do iconography, because they're always kissing pictures of Mary and Jesus and stuff, and they venerate and worship idols and all the stuff that God says not to do. Even in the Eastern Orthodox 10 Commandments, it says no idolatry. But if you go to Eastern Orthodox Church, they might have little pamphlets that explain to you, no, the way we do iconography is okay. You can worship our idols, it's fine. So they were going to send me to the Ukraine. And then the pastor said, hey, I don't think you're going to Ukraine. And I said, why? Because it would have been in the summer. And he said, because the Russians are lined up around like 4 different borders of the Ukraine. It doesn't look good. And that was the beginning of the war in Ukraine. And I can't remember if that was after lockdowns, right? We went into lockdowns first and then the Ukraine stuff. I can't remember the order, but it was like, one then the other, boom, boom. And then I was like, okay, yeah, it's not happening. And I would have been able to see icons. I've also seen icons that spew myrrh, and I've seen it held in the hands, and it was like Ghostbusters stuff, where this icon of Mary holding baby Jesus was just oozing myrrh, and it smells really good. And I held the myrrh in my hands. Like, I saw a priest go, and he scooped a card, like a business card. He scooped the myrrh off of it, and I saw it held in the hands of clergy, and it was just oozing myrrh. It looked like an ice cream cake that was sweating. Did you ever get an ice cream cake for your birthday or for your kid's birthday, and then you take it out because you're going to cut it, and it starts beating up sweat? That's what this picture of, done in the style of Byzantium, of Virgin Mary and baby Jesus looked like. It looked like ice cream cake that was sweating, but it was so profuse that it was just dripping. They had to put rags all around it, but I saw them pick it up and hold it in their hands. So I don't know what that is that I saw, but people go to visit it all the time. Some of the icons travel, and some of them stay with wherever the miracle happened. These miraculous icons, whatever they are. I've seen one. That's part of my witness or testimony is, I don't know if it's from God or the devil, but I've seen it, and it doesn't make sense. I saw him pick it up and hold it in his hands, and it was just like this little 5x7 little plaque painting thing or whatever. And it was just exuding more myrrh from all of its sources. Before I had seen it, I thought what it was going to look like is going to be like Virgin Mary, and there's going to be a tear dripping. There's going to be one spot where myrrh is dripping out. No, the entire surface of the thing, front and back, was exuding myrrh, and apparently it never stops doing this. And then they take the rags with the myrrh on it, and they send them around to other churches, and they use it for anointments and stuff like that. So I don't really believe that we're supposed to do iconography, and I don't know what the myrrh spewing icon was that I saw. You know, whether it was from God or the devil, I don't know. But I seen it, and I never seen anything like it. It was just like, my mind went right to Ghostbusters, where Slimer goes through the wall after he gets Bill Murray, and it just slime's coming out of the wall. And that's what this myrrh icon was. It was like, smelled good, it was sweet smelling, it's clear, fluid. And then it was given to me and put in, like, they had little sandwich bags or whatever, and they'd put cotton ball with the myrrh on it, and they'd give it to everybody that went to the service. But I saw after the service, like behind the scenes, and I don't know how to explain that, or if it's from, you know, that's a miracle or what that is, because we're not supposed to worship and venerate things like this. So it's, I was going to study iconography, but it just didn't feel right. It was another one of those things where it's like, no, this isn't it. I can't do this. Just my heart wasn't in it. It was hollow and empty. I was being, you know, motivated by clergy that I should do this, and I was taken to see icons. I was seeing the bones, you know, we kiss the bones of dead saints and stuff like that. They have these, what do they call that? Oh, I guess those are icons too, but there's a specific word for it. And I'm like, really, that's the bone? That's like supposed to be a bone fragment of St. Paul? How do you know that? Anyway, I don't think you're supposed to put value. I don't know, you know, you're not supposed to be kissing stuff like bones of dead saints. I'll just say that's how I feel about it. But I didn't know any better at the time. And I just knew, like, it just wasn't in my heart to do iconography. And then I kept, like, talking to other iconographers, like, talk to them on the phone, and they would say it was like a serious thing, like, you know, like, I remember the one woman that was an iconographer, and she said, well, I molded over for 5 years before I really decided that that's what I wanted to do. I molded over for years too, and then I decided that I just don't do it. It just wasn't in my heart to do iconography, and now I don't even think you're supposed to do it. I think it is against God. It says in the Ten Commandments, no false idols. You know, and what was it? An altar in the Old Testament? 3 stones on top of one another. That was it, right? And then, you know, so I don't know if a church is supposed to be full of paintings of the saints in the style of Byzantium or whatever. So, you know, right now, I don't make art. And it's cost me money because it was my career. So it's like all the stuff that I pursued that I wanted to do was all stuff that maybe was against God. And I kept stopping myself from success because I don't know if it's the right thing to do. So now I'm in a weird place where I'm like kind of waiting on God, like, well, what do you want me to do, Lord? So that has something to do with my YouTubes. You know, I used to do YouTubes high all the time. I used to go to church on Sunday with a hangover from Saturday, you know, and then have wine. And then after Eastern Orthodox church, I'd go to the liquor store and, you know, get like a box of wine. I'm like, well, I can have wine, right? Or I can have, you know, there's that part in the Old Testament where it says about having strong spirits. And like that, there's a part where it makes it, if you misread it, it seems like it's in support of, like, if you want to go have strong drink, do all these things, and then you can go do that. So I would go to Orthodox church, have a shot of wine, and then just want more wine. Because that's communion. Communion, in Eastern Orthodox church, they give you wine. And where I went to church, they got really good stuff. And you would have, like, you'd literally do a shot in a shot glass. A shot of wine is communion. They'd bless the bread, they'd bless the wine, and then you would do shots. And then, you know, like, in Orthodox church, you fast from midnight Saturday till you go to church. Like, a lot of people don't even brush their teeth in the morning. Like, nothing passes their lips. They want communion. It means something to them. and then they receive communion, and the first thing you get is a shot of wine. And then afterwards, because if all the wine doesn't go when people come up for communion, then the priest and any church help behind the altar, they have to drink that wine. They can't let it go to waste. So they'll put the wine in shot glasses so you can get your communion and then afterwards do that shot of wine. In shot glasses. I don't know how else to say it. Do you get what I'm saying here? So anyway, that's Orthodox Church. And I just don't believe in iconography, and I don't think we're supposed to do it. And what does Jesus look like? I don't know. I guess we're all going to find out. No way around that. We're all going to find out what he looks like. Some people say they know already. They have near-death experiences or whatever. But I don't know if we're supposed to do iconography or not, but I don't know. I definitely know it's a form of alchemy because it's animal, vegetable, mineral. You combine these elements together and then you paint with them. You paint egg tempers. There's very specific things that you do to make icons, and it's also act of devotion. And does that mean that I think Ouspensky is evil and he's a Satanist and what he did was against God? No, this is people's worship and veneration of God through iconography. But to me, it didn't feel like I didn't feel inspired to do it. I felt kind of pushed to do it, and then I was like, I'm not doing that. It's just not for me. And here I am now where I'm like not sure to do like all the stuff I pursued like in my youth into adulthood. I'm not sure what to do with that now in my advanced old age. Even though I'm looking pretty great. This is all that's gone great. Everybody else my age probably it's all gray. So by the grace and mercy of God, maybe I don't look as old as I am, but I'm pretty old. And it's kind of late in life to go, well, what do you want me to do with all this, God? But I'm not the only one who put the art away. Some people feel moved by God. I'm not going to name names, but one thing that was confirmation for me that maybe I'm not so bad off as I thought I was with not knowing if I'm even allowed to paint or draw, or in what way I could do it that wouldn't grieve God. There is a YouTuber whose channel's doing better than mine, and he was told to burn all of his art and burn his paintings as an offering to God, and he was also told what place in the Bible, I think without even having read the Bible, he was told what place in the Bible to go to that says, here's where it says burn up all your shit and get rid of it. And I did that too. This is something I didn't say before, but periodically throughout my adult life, I would do scorched earth, and I would just burn all my artwork and all my paintings. And I just remembered something else. There's a famous artist who you might know who he is. I'm not going to name his name, but there's another artist I'm acquainted with where part of his claim to fame is he was an up-and-comer in the New York art scene in the 1970s, and right when he was going to hit the big time, he started talking to God, and God told him to burn all of his artwork. And everybody's like, dude, they're doing a documentary on you and you're going to be a big art star, making like a movie like shot on film of you in the 1970s, and you're in the New York art scene and you're a big guy coming up. And he burned all of his artwork and then walked away from painting for like 15 years and just lived in trusting that God would direct his life and everything. And he wrote a book about it. I think they did make a documentary about him like in the 2000s, and he's still around, and his artworks go for a lot of money. I think he's finally had a retrospective of all the artwork he's done, the stuff that was burned as well as the stuff that in his new works or whatever. And so I don't know if I agree with the artwork that he makes now or what happened to him, but I knew the guy, and that was his claim to fame, was that God kind of told him to burn his artwork up. And that was the thing that connected me to him, because I kept having this like ever so many years, I was like, I think I just have to burn all this stuff and I have to destroy my artworks without even knowing who that guy was. but then I, met him and everything, and then I saw the YouTube guy who destroyed all of his artwork, and it's like, yeah, I mean, like it could be idolatry, and I sold a lot of paintings, so the idea of the type of paintings that I did, hanging on people's walls, holding a spot of veneration in their home or their apartment or whatever. Like I've sold like 200, 300 paintings probably, somewhere in there, like definitely over 100. I've sold a lot of things that I made, and people put a value on them that maybe God didn't want. Certainly not anything I did. I did a lot of questionable artwork, and again sold it to people. It makes me think of something H.R. Giger said. H.R. Giger is the guy who designed Aliens for the Ridley Scott Alien movie. He designed that penile head creature, and he's production designer for movies, and he always does demon stuff. He was the designer for Jodorowsky's Dune, and some of his designs for Dune I think David Lynch used when David Lynch directed Dune in like 1982 or whenever that was. But H.R. Giger said that he would never want to eat dinner in the homes of people who had his paintings hanging on the wall in the dinner room, because he knew that the shit he did was creepy. And if you know about the history of H.R. Giger, when he was a youth, he was interested in Thelema and Crowley and all that stuff, and it's reflected in his grotesque artwork. And H.R. Giger's thing was about creating hell realms where, like, if a man went into the hell realm, he wouldn't survive. He wouldn't last there not even 2 minutes, which is H.P. Lovecraft's kind of stuff and all that thing. So, H.R. Giger, rest in peace. I hope he got into heaven. But he also designed like a lot of occult album covers. He did one for Blondie, who is a known occult witch on purpose. He did an Emerson, Lake and Palmer album cover, even though nobody knows who that is anymore. The album was called Carn Evil. And he was it's H.R. Giger. He designed Ridley Scott's Alien, and he had other designs for creatures and aliens, but they were too grotesque and sexual that Ridley Scott didn't want to use his designs because they were just like pornographic. Like the face hugger in Aliens is a woman's whispering eye, and then the hands, and then that latches onto your face. Fear, like vagina dentata with the teeth in it, all that kind of stuff. Psychosexual stuff. H.R. Giger's first big collection of his artwork was called H.R. Giger's Necronomicon. Necronomicon is supposed to be the spell book for summoning demons, not Lesser Key of Solomon, but the Necronomicon made by Madman Abdul Alhazred, as described by H.P. Lovecraft in his writings and stuff like that. So that's Giger's art book. It's called Necronomicon, and he's got upside down pentagrams and devil shit and everything. And painting dead babies with airbrushes, and it's disgusting. Channeled art. So anyway, the whole point of bringing Giger into this is that I did a lot of paintings, and I don't know if I want to eat dinner in somebody's house who had one of my paintings hanging up on their walls, because my artwork is disgusting and morose, and I don't even want to show you the artwork that I've done. But some of the stuff that I've done may be on other people's channels, because I did do compilations of my artwork, and I think, either Soften a Coffin or Champion of Love reposted them, so I'm not sure if that's still up. If you want to see, you can find them, but I'm not encouraging it because it's not even my best stuff. It was just weird stuff I did, and I sold all that stuff. Like people paid for it, and I'm like, yeah, that's gross. Why would anybody pay for that? One painting I did was so disgusting that people kept, and it was in gallery shows and stuff, people kept buying it, but when it came time for people to pick up the painting, they didn't take the painting. It was so demonic. I think I may have gotten paid, and the gallery got paid a couple times for the painting, but then the people didn't take the painting. They didn't want it, and I kept being stuck with this painting that kept getting sold, and is gross. It's kind of like, it's a hell painting. I'm not even going to describe it. Graven images I can think mean a lot of things. So maybe you're not worshiping it like it's a god to you, but you're putting value and you're putting in a high place in your home. What? A painting of what? Superman, Batman, some kind of demon. Oh, I got like a painting from this guy from Juxtaposed magazine. I paid $2,000 for this demonic oil painting, and then it holds a spot of veneration in your home, or it's part of the background of your podcast set, and it's putting a value on it. That's falls into graven images, I believe. So I can't do it anymore, and I'm not sure where I'm going with art, and I make videos. And if you go through the timeline of me making content, which there's a record of on other people's YouTube channels with my videos, you can see I've come a long way from where I was. And also I'm sober 100% of the time, all the time now. And I kind of think my videos, in terms of me talking to you, just doing a thing, you can get better at it if you do it long enough. And I think I've been doing it long enough that I got better at it. And I'm sober all the time, which is fantastic for everyone. And I'm also working on my use of vulgarities, and you can see growth and development as I strive for a nearness to God, that he was reaching out to me, but I didn't even know who he was. And now I'm getting to know God, and you're getting to see me get to know God through videos. So there's my channeling art video.